Hey, what's going on, everybody? Echo Side Fiend here, back once again, and today I just wanted to jump up on here and talk about WrestleMania 36, Night 1, which was of course last night. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so Night 2 is later tonight. I did actually want to do a video about this pretty much right when it got done last night, but I was so fucking tired by the time it got done. I know it was only 3 hours, which was kind of nice, just running from 7 to 10 pretty much right on the dot. But my internal clock is pretty much set in its way, so to speak. So even on the weekends when I can sleep in, I usually wake up only a couple hours after what I normally get up. So I had been up since about 6:30, 7 o'clock Saturday. So and once it was done, I came in here into my room and pretty much just watched a little TV and called it a night. So I decided to talk about it today. So right off the bat, I do want to say this is not going to be a review of WrestleMania 36. There's plenty of those out there. This morning when I woke up, Zane's Wrestling with Regret YouTube channel, his review of it was up already. So I will actually leave a link to that in the description. If you're not subscribed to his channel, if you're a wrestling fan and you're not subscribed to Wrestling with Regret, you definitely need to fix that. He is absolutely amazing, one of the best content creators out there. And also another review that I will link up in here was by a personal friend of mine, Raven Brighid. She's a fellow Juggalo YouTuber. She did a great review, about a 45-minute review, very in-depth, very insightful. And she is kind of just like me, where she's kind of fallen away from the main roster. Like I don't watch the main roster of WWE as much anymore. I'm more into NXT now. I just got burned out on the main roster. I think she's kind of in the same boat as me. So when she was watching WrestleMania 36, she pretty much came into it with no expectations, no ideas about it, other than watching the pre-show, and she said catching up on a few clips on YouTube. So she came into it with a fresh pair of eyes, totally seeing a lot of this for the first time. So her review came off really good. So I will put a link to her video as well. And while you're there, give her a subscribe if you're not already. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Basically, like I said, I'm just gonna kind of talk about my thoughts about the overall event, and obviously just the empty arenas and all that. And to start with, I had several people like from my work and just friends that aren't wrestling fans kind of ask me if they thought if I thought that WWE should have just postponed this or canceled it. And I just gotta say, I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. Several people at my work asked me about it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I have no idea. Uh, to just start it off, I don't fear that WWE will ever go out of business. They're too big. They're publicly traded. I feel like they're safe as far as staying in business. But just like any other business, they can, suffer major, financial losses and have to let people go. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see any of the behind the scenes people lose their jobs, all the way from the people that pack the ring up and, drive their, gear all over in semis and run the merchandise tables and all, everybody like that, all the way to people, like the retired wrestlers that are backstage, producers and road agents, I don't want to see anybody lose their jobs, so it's like keeping going with it. Maybe that was the right thing to do financially. I'm sure they still took a massive hit. Not even I'm sure they must have taken a huge financial hit still. But as far as to just go forward with it, again, I'm not saying whether they were right or wrong, but just from my perspective, I'm glad they did, because it still kept a bit of normalcy in this time. All of us that are wrestling fans, this is part of our weekly routine to watch wrestling. And for me, I've watched wrestling for over 30 fucking years, and it's just always been there. Even like I've talked about before, when I got super into skateboarding and snowboarding, I did fall away from it a little bit just because I couldn't figure out how to program our VCR. We had a Stone Age VCR at the time, so I couldn't figure out how to program it to tape without the TV on a certain channel. And then my mom's like, I'm not going to sit here and watch wrestling while you're not here. And so I just kind of fell away from it. I still kept up with it as far as through magazines, and I would go when they came to town, but I wasn't watching it as religiously for a little while. But it was still always there. I still always knew who the big names were. It was still something that was very near and dear to me. If I was home, I would watch it. If I just didn't end up going out skateboarding or something that night, I would still watch it. So it's just been part of my life for that long, and I've been watching WrestleMania every fucking year for that long. You know, even if I didn't get it when I still lived with my parents, if I didn't get it at my house, I knew someone somewhere who was, and I could go chip in on it and watch it. So I always watched it. And so for if WrestleMania, season comes and all of a sudden it's not there, and then you got all this fucking pandemic shit going on, and my work is fucking stressful as fuck because I'm losing all these customers that are closing up, and just if all of a sudden that like, oh great, it's WrestleMania weekend, I don't even fucking get to watch it, like that would have been kind of a downer. And so for it to still be there, as different as it was, it's still a little bit of normalcy, and I definitely appreciate that. I definitely appreciate how hard WWE worked to still put it out there. And I'll come right out and say it, I was pleasantly surprised at how good it was. I will admit I didn't have very high hopes for it. The tagline they've been saying, like the too big for one night. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's probably too shitty for one night. And I am glad to admit that I was wrong. I was very pleasantly surprised by how good it was. By the quality of the matches. There's a little bit of questionable booking, but I mean, when do I ever not have an opinion on some booking decisions that they made? So that's nothing new. But the matches were good. And I will just address the elephant in the room, though. That empty arena was so fucking distracting. I tried to just fucking ignore it and just like, I'm just going to focus on the matches, and I couldn't. It was just the most distracting fucking thing ever. And that's not taking anything away from the performers, from the matches, the personnel on site, the WWE, nothing. I know that they did what they could with what they had. And this is not to criticize them. It was what it was. It was so fucking distracting. I could not ignore it. I was trying and I just couldn't. Like there's some big fucking thing would happen and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, it's so quiet. You know what I mean? It was just, oh my god, it was so fucking distracting. And I've watched a couple of the the SmackDowns and Raws that were like that, so I was kind of prepared for it, but it was still just for WrestleMania. Oh god, it was like, and my roommate Jenny was sitting out there with me for a little while. She had to work early this morning, so she didn't watch the whole show. But she's like, I gotta watch a little bit of this and just kind of see what it's like. And she does appreciate wrestling. She likes it. She's not into it like I am, but she herself is an artist. She's a painter, so I know she knows the dedication, and the training and that kind of stuff, that two different mediums, but where she had to be disciplined to learn what she does, they have to do the same, and they have to be trained, and again trained, disciplined, dedicated to it. So I know she appreciates it for what it is. But yeah, so she was sitting there with me for a little bit, and like 2 or 3 matches in, and she was getting ready to go to bed anyway, but she's like, I don't know if I can take any more of this. This is so odd, and she wasn't taking away from the matches. She was just saying that just there's no call and response, and it's just, oh my god, it was so distracting. I tried to ignore it, but I knew that's what was going to happen, but I just made the best of it. And again, the WWE did a great job for what they had, and the performers all did as well, and everybody involved did as good a job as they possibly could, and I definitely appreciate that. So with that out of the way, there's just a couple matches I wanted to touch on. 3 matches. First and foremost, that ladder match was fucking amazing. That's another one that it was so odd with no crowd response though, and that's one thing I will say is, if they had gone out there and just kind of like, all right, let's just kind of take it easy. Let's have a few big spots. We'll just have a slow build, and then some crazy finish, and we'll call it good. I would have been okay with that. I would have totally understood. Like, hey, there's nobody here to witness all this fucking carnage that we were planning. So let's just take it easy. If they had done that, I would have been okay with it, but they didn't. They went out there and beat the fucking piss out of each other. That match was fucking incredible. It was definitely among the best ladder matches I've ever seen. And so if you're not aware, it was a triple threat, but it was for the tag team belts. Because in real life, The Miz is sick. I'm not 100% sure if it has anything to do with the Steve Carino virus or what, but he is sick, legit. And so they basically just took one representative of each team. So it was I believe Jey Uso. God, I still can't tell them apart. I don't know, one of the Uso brothers anyway. And then John Morrison and Kofi Kingston, and man, it was incredible. Morrison had a couple crazy fucking spots. Oh, they all had some crazy spots, but yeah, Morrison at one point did like a tightrope walk across the top rope and then did like a Hurricane Rana or whatever. Part of me is kind of like, why would walking across the rope make that any more of a powerful move than if you'd have just jumped in the ring and ran up the turnbuckles? But yeah, definitely a great visual, super talented to do that. I've always kind of prided myself on the fact that I have pretty good balance from all the years of skateboarding and snowboarding that I had done. If I had tried to do something like that, I'd taken one step on the rope and I would have been upside down on my fucking head on the floor or in the ring, you know. So definitely a cool spot. Definitely took some talent to do. And again, a great visual. I understand that's what wrestling is all about, the visuals and everything. But again, with no, that would have elicited like a massive crowd response for that, you know, and nothing. It's just empty, you know, and oh, it's so weird. And then also again, Morrison did a really cool. He did like his Starship Pain. He was standing on the actual ring, you know, where they have it like it's more like a flat, wide surface now. And they had the Uso brother was on a ladder like that was kind of spread between the turnbuckles, and he Morrison did like a Starship Pain across onto it, but then you know still down onto the end of the mat, and you could see him. It was really cool. You could kind of see the gears turning in his head as he was getting ready to like, all right, how I got to fucking set this up to still hit him while he's still up off the mat and everything. It was really cool. Really cool. Again, great visual, and just the match was great overall. I thought the finish was a little flat, but I won't give away the winner just so in case you haven't watched it yet. But and then the match of the night for me was Owens versus Rollins. Fantastic match. Those two are always putting on wrestling clinics. I'm a fan of Rollins. I'm a huge fan of Owens. I've been a fan of him since he was in Ring of Honor. I was actually at his final Ring of Honor show before he left for the WWE. It was in Dearborn, Michigan, and me and a few of my friends went, and it was a great night seeing his final performance there, and then to see him pop up on NXT just not very long later, a couple weeks later maybe, and but so I've been a fan of him for so long, and I was a little fearful when he came up to the main roster that he would get buried, and I still kind of think he did a little bit, but they're redeeming themselves with that. He's been doing great lately, and so yeah, I've just been a huge fan of him, and that match was fantastic. That was absolutely match of the night. And then of course, after they did like the DQ finish and then restarted it, and then it became a no DQ match. Part of me is like, why wasn't it just a no DQ match to begin with? Why have that screwy finish and then restart it? But again, I know they're just probably trying to make some stuff interesting for what's going on, and but Owens definitely had a WrestleMania moment, jumping off the WrestleMania sign that was above the commentary team, and a good 15-20 foot drop probably onto basically like one of his senton splashes that he does onto Rollins on an announce table. Rollins sold it like he was fucking dying. It was fucking awesome. Definitely an impressive move. Again, a great visual. Definitely a WrestleMania moment for Kevin Owens. Again, a huge spot to have with no crowd there. But again, you want to have a WrestleMania moment, and he definitely did that. So that was my match of the night for sure. And then, of course, the last match I do want to touch on quickly is the Boneyard match between AJ Styles and Undertaker. I've got to admit, I wasn't that super impressed with it. It didn't suck, don't get me wrong, and I'm not implying that you shouldn't watch this. If you haven't yet, I would definitely say to check it out. It was fun. But it was, if you're not aware, it was done in the same vein as the Final Deletion, the Hardys, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy when they were in TNA. It's done just like that with the multiple camera angles and music, and it was basically like you were watching something like a cheesy horror movie on Sci-Fi Channel or whatever. And I don't have a problem with the production like that. I am a bit more of a wrestling purist. I do prefer the in-ring style, because that's what I grew up with. That's why I watched wrestling to begin with. That's why I started watching wrestling. And so when they take it out of that zone, It's a little bit weird to me, but I understand WWE was probably making this shit up on the fly. They took themselves out of their comfort zone and said, let's try this, and it worked obviously because there's a lot of people online that are loving it. Brian Zane gave it a 4.5 on his review. I just watched Simon Miller on What Culture Wrestling. Gave it, he does the ups and downs. He gave it first an up, then he changed it to a golden up, and then he changed it to a diamond up. So a lot of people love it, and I didn't think it was horrible, but it was it was so over the top. And again, it's not my style. And again, I mean, it was like, filmed, I don't know if it was on a set or at an actual cemetery, but we'll just say it was a set. They filmed it on a set with, looks like it's in an old cemetery, and there, like I said, there's fog everywhere, and clearly different camera angles. They were doing stuff like that. Some of these guys, there's no possible way you would fucking walk away from alive, and Anderson and Gallows, they both took these insane moves that are gonna, from the Undertaker that would kill anybody, and they're gonna be on fucking Raw tomorrow night, and just stuff that would just kill anybody normally, and it was so over the top, and just to the point where it was silly, and I understand why some people like it, but again, I think it was just a kind of a poor man's ripoff, or a poor man's version, I guess maybe I should say, of the Final Deletion, Matt and Jeff Hardy, which was far superior. When I first saw that, I'd never seen anything like it, so it was like, to me, it was all new and fresh. And at first, while I was watching Final Deletion, I'm like, this is fucking weird. What is this? But then when it was done, I was like, wow, that was so cool. It was so original. And, the Hardys came up with that themselves, and I knew once I watched it, I knew WWE would copy it, which is fine. What do they say? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So I knew they would. And I just don't think they've ever come close. Was it Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt had a Wyatt compound match? The Wyatt family and the New Day had one, and none of it was as good to me as the Final Deletion. And it just, I don't know, it just didn't grab me. This Boneyard match just did not grab me the same way that like the Final Deletion did, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I'll probably watch it again, and maybe it'll sink into me a little bit more. I don't know, but if I had to give it like a grade of of a 1 to 5, I would say maybe a 2.5. I don't think it was terrible, but it just didn't capture my imagination in the same way as it did a lot of other people. But again, I understand they're doing just what they were trying to come up with anything to I shouldn't even word it that way, not try to come up with anything to save this, but just something to make it fresh, something to make it entertaining. And that's what they came up with. And props to both Undertaker and AJ Styles, and Anderson and Gallows for doing the match and doing what they could. It just didn't grab my imagination the same as it did a lot of other people. I'll probably give it another shot and see, but I also hope that was not Undertaker's final performance. I'm a little worried that it is, because he drove off on his motorcycle and put his arm up, and the Undertaker sign lit up on the side of the shed or barn or whatever, and he drove off with Metallica, or I don't know, maybe Metallica was playing when he came in, I don't know, regardless, drove off with music playing, and I'm kind of worried that might be it. I would really prefer to see his final match be in a wrestling ring, against a worthy opponent. Not saying AJ Styles isn't a worthy opponent, he is, but in a ring, with wrestling gear and just normal stuff. And if he wants to go over or do the job, whatever, I don't care. I would just like to see his final performance in a ring, preferably at WrestleMania. So I hope this wasn't his final showing, but regardless, I would recommend watching, the Boneyard match. It was fun. It was over the top, but again, for me, it just didn't do as much for me as it seems to have done for a lot of other people. But overall, WrestleMania 36 was pleasantly surprising. I was absolutely not expecting, much with all the changes and everything. And this was just night one last night, so we still got night two tonight. I would give night one a 4 out of 5. Again, not going through and doing a whole review, but it was definitely worth it. I definitely recommend watching it. And I do want to say thank you to WWE and Vince McMahon for just keeping that bit of normalcy there for us, for all of us that this is part of our lives and what we enjoy. And I know you had to work very fast to make it happen. And thank you to everybody at the WWE, from the wrestlers to the office people, all the way down to the people that are back behind the camera and backstage that we never see. Thank you for still putting this on. And I'm really looking forward to night 2. And I am going to be totally cheering for my boy Drew McIntyre, man. I want to see him win the title. I've been a fan of him since he debuted, and I would love to see him get his WrestleMania moment, even if it's in an empty arena. So that's all I got. I'm kind of rambling a little bit now. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting. This is Echo Side Fiend, and I will catch you in the next one. Too sweet.